Hey, what's up guys? Mikey here. I wonder if I've been getting dumber lately because I haven't read a book in a long time. I see all sorts of people online reading books by actual authors and not just college textbooks. So today, I will put aside my arrogance for once and finally read a book. Problem is, this is the only book I own. Danny Phantom, the most revolutionary leap forward for anything and everything called Danny Phantom. One of the most memorable and beloved Nickelodeon cartoons of all time. I mean, a teenager who has ghost powers and fights ghosts, celebrity guests guest starring as major villains, the characters feeling grounded, David Kaufman. It had all the right beats to make the show popular. The series only lasted 3 seasons from 2004 to 2007, with a total of 53 episodes, counting the hour-long specials as 2 episodes. When the show was canceled, Nickelodeon fans actually protested outside of Nickelodeon's building in New York to bring him back, something I wish the fans would always do when Nickelodeon makes a dog decision, because when they don't, Nickelodeon gives us bullshit. Almost every episode of the series was memorable for one reason or another. It was one of the most high-quality, unique, and special shows the network ever spat out. And yet, people hate the ending. The series finale, Phantom Planet, was a rather divisive episode, especially since it was the finale. Some people love it, some people hate it. I wouldn't say I'm in the middle because I do like a lot of its ideas, and while I admit that some things could have played out better, I wouldn't say I hate this episode, not by a long shot. I'd say I'm halfway in between the love it and middle part of the spectrum. But that's not the real story. By the end of the finale, a lot of the villain arcs had been taken care of in one way or another. Ones with keen eyes can spot every single ghost from the show during the scenes where Danny rounds them up and when they help make the Earth intangible. Except one. Okay, maybe 2. Dark Danny, also known as Dan Phantom, is the most impactful villain throughout the entire series. He was introduced in everybody's favorite episode, The Ultimate Enemy from Season 2.
Hello, Valerie. And goodbye.
As evil Danny Phantom from 10 years in the future. After Danny used his powers to cheat on a major exam, Danny lost his family, best friends, and Mr. Lancer in a tragic explosion. As a result, he went to Vlad Plasmius because there was nowhere left for him to turn. He wished he didn't have his ghost powers anymore, so Vlad separated his ghost half, who then did the same thing to Vlad. And then they ended up fusing together, creating the ultimate evil. And Danny's human half was killed, but Vlad got away. Present-day Danny prematurely learned the ghostly wail and defeated Phantom. Clockwork, the ghost of all time, gave Danny a second chance, and Danny took it, proving he wouldn't cheat on the exam. Clockwork was proud of Danny, but now his evil self exists outside of time. The episode ends on a cliffhanger implying Dark Danny would return at some point. Yeah, he never did. Allegedly, there were plans to bring him back at some point. One of the writers, Steve Marmel, who wrote a lot of episodes in seasons 1 and 2, didn't really return in season 3. And while I couldn't find the source of this, he said if he did return to write in season 3, Dark Danny would have been brought back. If he did return that season, then I can imagine they would have had to give season 3 more episodes to be able to fit at least one Dark Danny appearance in there. Especially since his first appearance was an hour-long special. But nonetheless, it didn't work out.
For the record, I blame you.
And that left The Ultimate Enemy as Dark Danny's only appearance in the show, not even appearing in Phantom Planet. Oh, that's why people don't like that episode. And with the series ending in 2007 and the online fandom still very passionate about it, this shows that Danny Phantom may be gone, but never forgotten. But luckily, the story doesn't end there. On July 18, 2023, New York Times bestselling author Gabriella Epstein and publisher Abrams Books released a comic novel called Danny Phantom: A Glitch in Time, which was the best Nickelodeon-related thing that released that month. This book picks up basically where the finale left off and gives us a follow-up story on Dark Danny. I remember hearing about this back in 2022 and was quite interested as to where this would go. After it came out, it took me a while to finally get it, but I finally did. Recently, I finally found time to sit down and read it, and I have to say, I really like this book. And that's coming from somebody who plays video games more often than reads books. So now let's read this book and see how well this continues Danny Phantom's famous story. So first, this book is available in both hard and paperback forms. I went with the hardback one, and this thing feels pretty quality. The cover art is beautiful on the front, the back, and even the spine. It's so cool seeing the original Danny Phantom logo again in the 2020s, and feels a little surreal seeing it without the Nickelodeon logo next to it. I'm also now just noticing there's both the word Nickelodeon on the spine and the same logo on the back surrounded by orange. This just makes me question why it needs to be on the spine and back. Why not just the back? At least there isn't a splot of orange on the spine ruining the artwork, but still. Opening it up, the paper feels really premium too. I'm impressed. There's a foreword from the author saying, "Thank you to Emily and Ben for being funny, and her mom for buying all the Danny Phantom toys from Burger King." Wow, there really were Danny Phantom Burger King toys. On page 1, we see Danny in an Arctic region being chased by a bear. He recaps the basic events from the series where he got his powers and how Tucker and Sam helped him keep it a secret from his parents. He fought a lot of ghosts over the years, but they worked together to save the world from the disasteroid in the series finale. After that, he revealed his identity to the world and was the biggest star. Back in the reality, Dash, Quan, and Star caught the box ghost after starting their own ghost fighting team. I'm sorry, did I miss something here? Danny, Sam, and Tucker made their way to a ribbon cutting ceremony, but somehow ended up in the medieval days and encountered Dora the Dragon Ghost who wanted to go to the ball. Back in the present, it was revealed the Fentons supplied the city with ghost hunting equipment despite not being asked, and Danny and the others ended up on stage almost revealing his identity. Tucker was no longer the mayor, and for some reason, his status said he was married to Emperor McLean. Okay, I have so many more questions. Amity Park was now the world's first ghost-free town, and as Danny Phantom tried to zap the ribbon, his powers wigged out, so the mayor did it for him. Back at Fenton Works, another time zap happened, and this time they ended up in the prehistoric era. They almost got eaten by a dinosaur, but soon they were back in the present. Since they were seemingly traveling through time, they decided to ask Clockwork, the time ghost. But right before they could leave, Vlad Plasmius showed up, and Danny, Sam, Tucker, and even Jazz were not happy to see him. Vlad explains he returned to Earth, but he lost all his fame. He tried to ask Clockwork to send him back in time so he won't make the same mistakes he made. Clockwork refused, but then Vlad accidentally knocked over the Fenton thermos that contained Dark Danny, and with a zap, it ended up breaking, freeing him. Vlad escaped, and Phantom grabbed Clockwork's scepter, broke it in half, and fused with Clockwork, making Phantom as powerful as any ghost in the franchise could be. And that's why Vlad came to Danny. He didn't believe Vlad at first, but the others said that could explain why Danny ended up glitching through time. So they checked the ghost energy reading, and since it was going off the charts, Phantom was indeed free and coming to Amity Park. Danny was doubting himself on being able to defeat his evil self, especially since his powers were on the fritz. But his powers had been weird ever since he saved the world, and he couldn't figure out why, but he didn't want to talk about it. But Tucker, Sam, and Jazz were there for him and would help him get through this. So Vlad said they needed an ultimate power source to defeat Phantom, and said he might have found a primordial ecto-energy source. The Infomap wouldn't work for Vlad, but it would work for Danny, and another time glitch made up his mind for him. So Jazz, with the Fenton Peeler, agreed to help her parents evacuate the city while Danny, Sam, and Tucker went to the Ghost King, taking Vlad with them, putting the Spectre Deflector on him, no not that one, making sure he wouldn't try any tricks, with Vlad complaining about this is what his life had come to. He ended up putting the whole world in danger. Why would they, of all people, let him off the hook? So Danny and crew went into the Ghost Zone while Jazz started to evacuate the city, and Valerie came in to help too. In the Ghost Zone, the map couldn't automatically take them to the power source, so they had to go to Vlad's lab to get his notes. Once he found them, Tucker used his own ancient language translator app to decipher what they said. It only read part of the text saying the Sevens, but then everybody glitched into the old western days in a canyon that would become Bryce Canyon National Park. Then an evil cowboy stole the Infomap, and after an epic chase scene we can only see through comic panels, they caught up with him, defeated him, and took the map back. Vlad thought that the Sevens meant the 7 ancients who locked the Ghost King, Pariah Dark, in the sarcophagus of Forever Sleep, so they decided to go there. Meanwhile, in Amity Park, Just about everybody was evacuated from the city, and the Fenton Ghost Shield was activated. Jazz wondered if there was another portal in Amity Park, and just then the alarm went off, signifying an alert coming from elsewhere in the Ghost Zone. Jazz alerted Valerie, who remembered the ghost portal in the Mayor's Manor. And sure enough, that's where the problem was. She tried to shut the portal, but unfortunately, Phantom made his way into the human world. Back in the Ghost Zone, Danny and the gang made it to Pariah Dark's keep. They encountered the Fright Knight, who immediately attacked Danny. Danny and Vlad worked together to take down the Fright Knight. Sam and Tucker almost got hit by the sarcophagus of Forever Sleep that had the Ghost King, but Danny and Vlad caught it just in time, and then dropped it on the Fright Knight, trapping him. Sam and Tucker found a secret room, but all they saw was a picture of 7 ghosts on it. Danny didn't feel more powerful and thought Vlad sent them there for nothing. But then another time glitch happened, and they ended up in a Mayan temple playing hacky sack with a ball before they were sent back to the present. Right before, Sam noticed a pattern, and they found 7 spaces which, once activated, they found a secret dungeon and made their way to the bottom. Back in Amity Park, Phantom was destroying the city. The Fentons tried to attack him, but he easily avoided them. Jazz tried to get to Phantom by talking to him, but all he said was, without his future, he wanted to take away theirs. But then Valerie ambushed him, but Phantom had Clockwork's energy absorbed, so she couldn't suck him into a thermos either. And thanks to that new power, he claimed the timeline was his now. Back in the Ghost Zone's secret area, they found more runes, and Tucker used his device to translate that text. This explains how emotions were the real chaos, which made them realize that all ghosts were just manifestations of human emotions, and depending on how much emotion they have, they'll end up like somebody like Amber McLean, or just generic looking ones. Danny realized this was true, and listed examples like Desiree feeding off of happiness from granting wishes, Ember feeding off attention from her fans, and Penelope Spectrum feeding off negative teenager energy. Danny realized he didn't have his powers at full energy because ever since he saved the world, he didn't really need them now. Even when saving the world, the enemies worked with him and it didn't involve hunting. Well, Danny did hunt the ghosts down before they actually agreed to help him. Danny decided his purpose was to now help both humans and ghosts, and only kick ghost butt when needed. And with that, his powers were back in full force. They then got a call from Valerie saying Amity Park had fallen. Even the doorways from the infomap were corrupted. When they made it back to Amity Park, the city was in shambles. Dash, Paulina, and Star tried fighting Phantom, but to no avail. Phantom himself was glitching out a bit, and the true Danny returned. He tried to talk to Phantom at first, which didn't work. So Vlad showed up, followed by Sam and Tucker with Fenton peelers and some of Clockwork's time medallions. Phantom started wailing on Vlad, and when real Danny stepped in, Jazz and Valerie realized Phantom was using some of his own energy to keep Clockwork in line. But with every blow he took, the timeline was getting more and more unstable. Danny saved the others from a huge blast by Phantom, but he was determined to eliminate Danny and Vlad, despite how unstable the timeline was getting. Vlad came in and blasted Phantom, and realized that his quest for power ended up alienating everybody around him, and that's what got him banished. And he now learned how to help make up for his mistake. So he and Danny delivered a final blow, freeing Clockwork from Phantom's control. Jack trapped Phantom and Maddie through the Fenton thermos, but Danny knew using the thermos wasn't the answer. Phantom wasn't happy he lost, and he lost everything, his original timeline and family. But since he was in a different timeline for so long, his structural integrity was unstable now, and he was falling apart, unless there was a way to keep him there. But Phantom didn't want to be alone, and since Vlad lost almost everything he had, he volunteered his body as a temporary vessel for Phantom to start making up for what he did. He accepted, and Danny and Clockwork were amazed by this action. Clockwork took him away before they split. Danny, Sam, Tucker, and Jazz celebrated Phantom's defeat, and Clockwork returned, feeling better and thanking Danny and the others for help. Because of all the damage done to several time streams, Clockwork would do what he could do to fix it. He presented 2 options to the gang for their own timeline. One option where everything was back to normal, but Danny wouldn't have his powers, and another where the world was saved from the disasteroid, and while Danny would still have his powers, he'd lose his fame and notoriety, with only Danny, Sam, Tucker, and Jazz knowing his secret identity. Danny knew to use his powers to keep peace, He chose door 2. Clockwork was pleased, and things ended up just that. With Dash being rude to Danny and his friends, the normal mayor re-elected, and the world not knowing how they narrowly avoided the disasteroid. But the mayor claimed ghosts were to blame, and Amity Park would now have mandatory anti-ghost training for all schools, and Danny Phantom being public ghost enemy number 1. Again. But Danny had gone through it before, so he was okay with doing it again. Meanwhile, Vlad was back in his lab and used one of his old Danny clones to hold the unstable Phantom. Clockwork could not help again if something went wrong, but something felt off about him. It turns out Valerie had managed to keep one of Clockwork's time medallions for herself. Back in Amity Park, Danny confirmed Jazz's theory on ghosts being manifestations of human emotions and decided to catch her up on their adventure at the Nasty Burger. Then the box ghost showed up, and Danny went ghost, starting his newly found purpose with his powers. And that is the end of the story. Wow, for the first book I've read since college, that was awesome. And that was Danny Phantom's A Glitch in Time. And I already stated my stance. That's a great book. I'm impressed by so many aspects about this comic novel. I'll start with the illustrations. All of the artwork throughout all 183 pages of this comic novel are so beautiful and well drawn. It captures the feel of the original series, and it feels as if an episode from the original series was translated into comic book form. I especially love that it doesn't feel like anime crap or anti-intelligence generated shit that is flooding the market these days. No, the illustrators of the book care about the show and wanted to capture the tone and style of the original series, and in my opinion, they nailed it. I especially love the illustrations that take up a whole page or two, like when Danny and the crew go into the ghost zone, when Danny goes ghost after he gets his mojo back, or when Danny and Vlad separate Clockwork from Phantom. They are so well drawn pretty pictures and are packed with little details throughout. Like here, when Danny still has his flowers from the ceremony when he and Tucker get glitched into the prehistoric ages, and when he loses them when he saves Sam and Tucker from the dinosaur. Or how the Amity Park sign says, "A nice place to live," on it, just like how it did in Season 2's Rainstorm. Or all of the writing on Vlad's notes. They're more than just little squiggly lines. Another thing I love about this story is the characters themselves. Despite being off the air for 16 years at the time of this book's release, all the characters are still perfectly in character as if the show never ended. Tucker is very tech savvy, but also sassy and quick to speak. Sam is the jaded goth and the voice of reason we all love. Jazz is smart and attends to her studies, but is still always there to help out when needed. Jack and Maddie are still always front and center when it comes to fighting ghosts, as well as being embarrassing to their kids, with Jack of course being more bumbling and ready to jump into action, and Maddie being more level-headed. And Danny definitely feels the most in character he's ever been, with how stressed he was about his powers going haywire, or how sad he was when he didn't know what the hell he was supposed to do. But still the very responsible and lovable guy we all know and love. Deciding to use his powers for helping to bring peace between the two worlds and only use violence when necessary. And Vlad is also written perfectly. I could so easily imagine his voice saying every line that was written in this book for him. I love how a lot of him from the original series is still consistent. Like how he's a Packers fan, or how he still had leftover clones of Danny after his previous attempt to make one in Season 2's Kindred Spirits. And after they find the runes, he's upset that he thinks he wasted all that time researching them and didn't get anything out of it. One of my favorite things about this book as a whole is how consistent it is with continuity to the original series. There are a lot of references and Easter eggs to be found here. Like here, when Jazz uses the name Ghost Getters, and Sam says, "We're still not calling ourselves that," which is a reference to Season 3's Girls' Night Out, when Jazz comes up with the name Ghost Getters, and Sam says it's not cool.
"I'll be right out, Ghost Getters!" That's not a cool name.
This story references the events of the original series finale, Phantom Planet, many times, by naming the disasteroid, and the beginning mentions how Danny and the ghosts team up to save both of their worlds. The Fright Night also mentions Rainstorm when he and Vlad briefly made a deal with each other, and the sarcophagus of Forever Sleep is referred to by name. It was only mentioned once in the original series, and no matter how well that one is known by the fans, I like when revivals mention even the obscure things that were only referred to by name once in the original series and never again. The dragon ghost we saw a few times in the series, who was most prominent in Season 2's Beauty Mark, was also shown. Phantom mentions the events of the Ultimate Enemy many times, which also makes sense since that was his only on-screen appearance and it's everybody's favorite episode of the original show. They even have the Infomap, which appeared in 2 episodes of Season 3, Infinite Realms and Phantom Planet, and they mentioned how it gave Vlad his just desserts when he tried to use it for his own nefarious purposes, and it was okay with Danny using it since he was the savior of the Ghost Zone in the eyes of Frostbite and his people. I also like how Valerie is still a ghost hunter and even has the upgraded battlesuit, which was first seen in Season 2's Flirting with Disaster. I love how this story shows more to Pariah Dark's keep that we never saw in the original TV movie from the old show. The secret room that has 7 spots that revealed the secret runes. Even the original mayor from before Season 3 is still the same guy. What great attention to detail. Abrams' books and Gabriella Epstein really cared and put a ton of research and detail in this to not contradict the canon of the original series. And it paid off. I absolutely love that. Something else I love is how this fixed a handful of issues that I had with the original series finale. My personal biggest issue was at the end when Danny revealed his identity in front of the whole world. This goes against so much of what we saw in the original series. In Season 2's reality trip, when his powers were revealed to the whole country, Danny and his friends were relentlessly hunted by the guys in white who wanted to do experiments on him for no reason.
You're coming in for questioning.
And experiments. Lots and lots of really painful experiments.
And in Season 3's Forever Phantom, all his heroic acts were the talk of the town, and he didn't like all the media attention he was getting.
And I just wanted to be left alone. But if we can't fix this, I don't think I'll ever be left alone again.
Now I understand why he revealed his identity to his parents in the finale, because reality trip showed us his parents loved him no matter what, and they totally understood why he kept lying to them and keeping his powers a secret.
We love you, sweetie. You.
Whether you're ghost, boy, or something in between.
But here, he revealed his secret in front of the whole world, which would undoubtedly not only get him even more media attention he didn't sign up for, but I can imagine the guys in white wouldn't let him off the hook even if he was a hero. They are the government's ghost hunting squad after all. I know we don't see the guys in white in Phantom Planet, but still. This rights that wrong, and Danny chooses to have his secret identity a secret and only known by Tucker, Sam, and Jazz, and he still planned to be the hero and regain his town's trust somehow. It's like how in Season 1's Public Enemies, when Danny became public ghost enemy number 1, thanks to Walker framing him and turning the whole town against him.
Feared on Earth and wanted in the ghost zone. You've lost, ghost kid. Lost!
I also thought that Tucker being mayor at the end was a little strange. I know the town didn't have a mayor after Vlad was banished and Tucker came up with a machine to make the Earth intangible, but still. Here, while it's glossed over, he's not the mayor anymore. And while I prefer a different explanation to he dropped the baby, I still like that his live stream here implies that he's still popular after Phantom Planet, so that's something at least. The humor throughout is so well done that it feels like it was ripped straight out of the original show too. The little comments that Sam and Tucker make throughout the book, whether to each other or Vlad, the little bit with the field reporter Lance Thunder. Jack has some pretty good lines that are both funny and completely in character. Danny's snarky comments to Vlad throughout, and the way Vlad describes his story compared to how it actually played out, just to name a few examples. I love how unapologetically evil Dark Danny is, and I also love his design when he fuses with Clockwork. He looks even more striking and imposing here. The writer really nailed Dark Danny, and I love that so much. Now before I get to what I love most about this book, I want to share my biggest negatives. But there aren't a ton. Most of what I'm about to share are nitpicks. First up, I don't get why this line exists that said Tucker was married to Ember McLean. That's strange and never brought up again. When Vlad lands in the RV, Jack's line, back for re-election, sort of undermines the impactful closure he had with Vlad when they were up there in space, when Jack learns his old friend Vlad is too far gone from his old friend Vlad now.
You wouldn't turn your back on an old friend, would you?
An old friend? No. You? Yes.
Jack!
The illustrations here show Vlad watching the disasteroid passing through the Earth, which is unlike the original episode. And Danny and Jazz said Jack booted Vlad into space. That's not true either, as I already established, he abandoned Vlad in space. But I can imagine the former was done just to make sure the fans knew he didn't die after getting hit by the disasteroid, since that was the last time we saw Vlad in the original finale. It was also confirmed this story takes place a year after the original series, which is also odd to me. The original show ran from 2004 to 2007, which says to me, at least, that it took place in the mid-2000s. Even the fashion says it was from the 2000s. And yet here, the town already had things like modern smartphones, social media, and live streaming. None of which really took off until the early 2010s in the case of the former and the middle, and the mid-2010s in the case of the latter. Dash, Quan, and Star being their own ghost fighting team is just so weird to me since it just came out of nowhere right at the start. I mean, sure, it is paid off later in the book when they were shown fighting Phantom, but I really wish there was a proper explanation for this at the very beginning instead of making us wait until so much later in the book before any kind of explanation comes up for it. And lastly, my biggest issue is nothing about the quality of the writing or the illustrations themselves. It's more about the medium this is presented in. Because this is a book, I feel there are some moments where I feel things weren't presented as well as they could have been. The time jumps, for example, I kept having to double take whenever one occurred.
1, 2, 3.
It took me a minute before I could move on for me to fully process the time jumps. If this was an episode from the show, I wouldn't even have to think about what had happened because it would have visually indicated the time jumps so much better. Those and the action scenes would be jaw-dropping if they were in the original series. In my opinion, they'd probably be the best action scenes in the original show. And scenes like that really show how well Danny Phantom works as a show rather than a comic novel. But for what they could do here, it worked pretty fine. But it just makes me imagine what this would be like if it was an episode from the original show. And now, my favorite thing about this story is how deep it goes with its themes and plot twists. How it reveals the ghosts are just manifestations of human emotions. Most of the ghosts that are just pure evil with no personality are the generic animal looking ones, like the ectopuses in Season 1's Mystery Meat and Bitter Reunions. While most of the ones we see have some kind of human emotions, Walker being very strict about following rules, Desiree feeding off the joy from the wishes she grants, Technus getting a serotonin boost from what technology can do, and so on. Danny discovering that his powers have been fading away since he had his hero moment and there wasn't much use for his powers anymore. And when Vlad learns everything that happened was all because of him, and he actually felt enough remorse to give the unstable Phantom a temporary vessel to help make things right. That is amazing. I definitely didn't see that coming. I already found Vlad a fun character in the original series, but this moment in this book made me love him even more. I love that he came to that realization on his own and took the first steps to start making things right. Even Clockwork was impressed by Vlad's good doings. This whole thing is so deep that it surpasses even the deepest and most powerful moments from the old show. I'd say the deepest the old show got was The Ultimate Enemy, where Clockwork explains his reasons for giving Danny a second chance at a good future. He says the observants look at time at base level, while Clockwork sees all the twists and turns things can take, and he was proud of Danny risking everything to save his friends and family. If A Glitch in Time was an actual episode or a TV movie, it would fit right into the original show like a glove. This feels like it was written by a writer of the show rather than somebody who was just hired for the sake of continuing the original story. Overall, this is just a great Danny Phantom story. Completely disregarding my nitpicks, except for the fact that I think some scenes would be conveyed to the audience a bit better if this was fully animated and not just a comic panel, this is an absolute must-read for any Danny Phantom fan out there. I could so easily picture this as a real episode. I would love to see this be adapted into an animated Danny Phantom special one day, with full animation, the iconic music, and as many voice actors as possible doing our favorite Danny Phantom characters. This would be one of the best things to ever come out of Nickelodeon, especially in the modern day. I am so happy I read this because it's an amazing continuation of the old series, and after reading it, I couldn't imagine a better story to reboot the franchise with, even if it was in comic novel form. Danny Phantom, A Glitch in Time is an amazing book. It stands toe-to-toe with the quality and storytelling of the original series in my opinion. The characters, the deep messages, the humor, and the visuals make this an essential read to anybody who even remotely liked the original series. And even if the old show never officially comes back, I will be more than happy with this being our continuation story. But I'm even happier that I got this out of my backlog because now I never have to stress about reading a book ever again. There's another one? I always say these statements at the worst possible times.